You won't believe what one entitled HOA Karen tried to pull on me and my dog. It all started on a quiet Saturday morning when I was walking my Doberman Max around our neighborhood, just like I do every weekend. He's well-trained, calm, and honestly one of the friendliest dogs you'll ever meet. But suddenly, out of nowhere, one of the HOA board members, let's just call her Karen, storms out of her house yelling at me. She starts accusing Max of biting her, even though he was calmly sitting next to me the entire time. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she mistook another dog for Max. But nope. She doubled down, screaming that she was going to call animal control and report me. I was shocked. Max had done nothing wrong. What made it worse? She actually tried to show a scratch on her arm and claimed it was from my dog. That's when I knew something was seriously off. I stayed calm, but I started recording everything. I had a feeling this wasn't her first time trying to bully someone in the neighborhood. And guess what? The footage revealed something that completely turned the tables. What was supposed to be a false accusation ended up exposing her for more than just lying. You're going to want to stick around for this, because what happens next not only clears Max's name, but it leads to a twist that even I didn't see coming. As Karen continued her rant, I tried to keep my composure, but honestly, I was feeling a mix of anger and confusion. I've lived in this neighborhood for years, and I've never had any issues with anyone. Max and I were known as the quiet, friendly residents. People even complimented me on how well-behaved he was. So, for her to make such a dramatic accusation out of nowhere felt like a slap in the face. At first, I thought maybe Karen was just having a bad day or misunderstood something. But then I noticed something strange. She seemed way too prepared. As she was yelling, I could see her clutching her phone tightly, like she was waiting for a moment to call animal control. Her eyes darted around, almost like she was expecting backup or trying to make the situation worse. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just an accident. She was clearly trying to set me up. I calmly asked her if she was sure it was Max that bit her, pointing out that he hadn't even moved from my side. But Karen wouldn't back down. She said she needed medical attention immediately and started demanding that I pay for her treatment. It all felt like a scam, and I wasn't about to fall for it. That's when I decided to start recording. I wasn't sure what I'd need the footage for, but my gut told me this was going to escalate, and I needed evidence. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a much bigger revelation. As I stood there recording, I noticed something that made my heart race. Karen was speaking more loudly now, and she kept repeating the same accusations about being attacked by Max. But there was one thing she kept changing: the details. At first, she said she was bitten on her arm. Then she claimed her leg had been scratched. Her story was falling apart, and I could see her starting to get frustrated that I wasn't reacting the way she wanted. She kept demanding that I own up to what my dog had done, threatening to get the HOA involved, and even said she'd have me banned from walking my dog in the neighborhood. But I wasn't about to back down, not when I knew Max hadn't done anything. The tension between us was growing thicker with every word. I decided to go one step further and calmly asked her if I could see the so-called bite or scratch she was claiming. She hesitated for a second and then lifted her sleeve to show me her arm. But instead of a bite mark, there was just a small red spot. Nothing like what she'd been describing. Her body language was telling me everything I needed to know. She was trying to manipulate the situation. It was at that moment I realized Karen had done this before. I could feel the pattern emerging. She wasn't just accusing me of something she thought was true. She was actively trying to ruin my reputation. My mind was racing as I wondered how far she was willing to take this. Was this part of a larger scheme? Had she been looking for someone to target? I glanced around, hoping to see a neighbor or anyone who could back up my side of the story. But of course, the streets were eerily quiet. Karen must have known that too. As if on cue, she started dialing her phone, her eyes flicking toward the direction of the HOA office. This was spiraling, and I had no idea how much worse it could get. But there was no turning back now. I had the evidence on camera, and I was starting to suspect that Karen's next move was going to make things even more complicated. As Karen dialed her phone, I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I knew this could go in any direction. Either she would escalate things to the HOA, or I could find a way to defuse the situation before it spiraled out of control. I could hear her muttering something into the phone, but I couldn't make out the words. It was clear she was making a bigger scene than necessary, and I was starting to worry about what would happen if animal control or the HOA showed up. My heart was racing, but I tried to stay as calm as possible. I kept my phone recording, just in case, but I could tell that Karen wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted. She had this look in her eyes like she was savoring the power she had over the situation. It was as if she thought I'd fold under pressure, apologize, and offer to pay for whatever treatment she claimed she needed. But I wasn't going to give in. Then, just as I thought it couldn't get worse, a car pulled up. It was the HOA president, someone I recognized from the meetings. I felt a pit form in my stomach. Karen must have called her in advance to back up her story. The HOA president stepped out, looking confused at first, but quickly taking Karen's side. Without even asking for my side, she started scolding me for letting Max run around and cause trouble. I was in shock. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. But I wasn't about to let them just turn this into a one-sided accusation. I felt the anger building up, but I kept reminding myself to stay cool. I couldn't let this become a shouting match. But it didn't help that Karen was now openly accusing me of ignoring the HOA's pet rules, saying that I'd been warned before, something I knew wasn't true. The whole thing was falling apart, and I was starting to realize that she was more determined than I thought. The HOA president turned to me, telling me she was going to call animal control herself if I didn't deal with my aggressive dog. At that moment, everything in me wanted to snap back, but I stayed silent. I was watching Karen's every move, trying to pick up on any signs that she was lying. And then, just as Karen was about to make her grand finale of accusations, I saw it, something small but crucial. Karen's sleeve had shifted, and I could see a faint shadow of something else underneath. A mark, too fresh, too deliberate. My instincts screamed that it wasn't a scratch from Max. It wasn't a bite. It was something else entirely. My pulse quickened as I made the connection, and my gut told me this was about to get a lot messier than I thought. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at the mark under Karen's sleeve. It wasn't a scratch, and it sure wasn't from Max. The faint outline of a bruise was clearly visible now, and it looked like it had been there for days. Definitely not something caused by a dog. My mind started racing, but I couldn't react too quickly. I had to stay calm, or else this would all fall apart before I could figure out what was really going on. As Karen continued her rant, I focused on the bruise. She was still trying to push her story, claiming Max had attacked her without provocation, but there was something off about her demeanor now. The HOA president, still standing beside her, seemed to be buying into every word she said. I could tell Karen was enjoying this, her confidence growing with each passing second. She thought she had the upper hand, but I wasn't so sure anymore. That's when I made the bold decision to call her out. I'd had enough of the lies. I took a deep breath and said, "Karen, I've been watching you, and I know that mark on your arm isn't from Max. That's been there for days. What's really going on here?" The words hung in the air. For a split second, there was total silence. Karen's face went pale, and I could see her trying to mask her surprise, but it was too late. I wasn't backing down. The HOA president, still oblivious, shifted uncomfortably, glancing from Karen to me. Karen froze, her hand instinctively covering the bruise. Her eyes darted around like she was searching for a way out of the trap she'd just walked into. And then, as if on cue, her phone rang. She quickly snatched it up, and her tone shifted drastically. Instead of the desperate, accusing voice she'd had before, she now sounded almost defensive. "Yes, it's me. No, I'm not at the park. I'm with there." She stopped mid-sentence. Something was wrong. Her voice trembled slightly as she continued talking, now speaking in hushed tones. The moment felt surreal, like I was watching a drama unfold in real time. Karen wasn't just lying about the bite, it seemed like there was something much darker going on. I caught a few words as she continued the conversation. The plan is falling apart. No, I told you I'd handle it. My pulse quickened. What was she talking about? Who was she talking to? And why was she so flustered all of a sudden? I had to know. Every instinct in me screamed that this was bigger than just a dog bite. The seconds ticked by, and the tension was unbearable. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly starting to fall into place, but I still couldn't make sense of it all. Why was Karen so nervous? What had she really been trying to set me up for? The stakes had just risen, and I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. Whatever she was involved in, it was far from over. Karen's phone call continued in hushed tones, but I could hear enough to realize that something was terribly wrong. The brief snippets I caught were enough to make my stomach churn. The plan is falling apart. I told you I'd handle it. The words didn't make sense, but the tone of her voice did. She was scared, and whatever plan she was talking about was unraveling right in front of her. I wasn't about to let her hide behind this facade any longer. As the conversation continued, I took a step closer, my voice cutting through the air with a calm, steady tone. Karen, I know you're lying. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not going to let you make this about Max. You need to tell me what's really going on. At that, she whipped her head toward me, her eyes wide with panic. She quickly hung up the phone, but the damage was already done. I saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, like I had just stumbled upon something she hadn't expected. Her hand went back to covering the bruise, her fingers trembling slightly. Listen, she said, her voice shaky, you don't know what you're getting into. Before I could respond, the HOA president, who had been watching the exchange without saying much, stepped forward and crossed her arms. Karen, what's going on? You're making this worse for yourself.